Is there a great example of, a way you said no and created a great outcome, or, you use that empathy we're talking about to solve a client's problem, and you turn them around? And because you and I see this all the time in our industry, and I want to leave people with some, there are some great people that work in this industry. I think the veterans might be tired and exhausted, but they're back and still excited to see this build up. And the new people that are listening need to hear um, why we do it, why this is still all worth it, and that it can be done when there's those challenging situations. So any good war story you can share where you go, yeah, man, this just happened last month?
Yeah, I mean, literally thousands. But the biggest part is just relying on that, that first empathy, not being patronizing. So, I can literally think of 20 situations where I walked up and the person's already just angry, whether it's about my truck's in line, my freight didn't get here, etc. And hearing them, letting them vent, don't cut them off, don't do any of those things, hear them, repeat it back, empathize. When they're talking to you, do not think about what you're going to say back. I have a teenage son. This is my number one frustration. Every time I'm talking to him, I know he's not listening. He knows what he's going to say back. He's rehearsing it in his head. Don't do that. People know you're doing that. Genuinely listen and repeat back. Okay, I understand you're frustrated. You thought your box was going to be here hours ago. It's not here. Here's what we're going to do. Let me check and see where your truck is. Let me check and see how far back that is. Let's set an expectation. So if I know it's going to be a couple hours, go get something to eat, go back to your hotel, go get some work done, take your mind off of this situation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to monitor where that truck is. Give me your cell phone number. I'm going to keep track of when that shipment is going to be here. And there are personnel on the show floor that this is their job. And even if there's not, again, top to bottom, create the culture and have the mechanism that you can activate to say, hey, we're having an issue here. But I think the most important thing, set a reasonable expectation, provide reasonable options to them. Don't lie, don't gloss it over, don't run around like a chicken with your head cut off. I'm trying to think of a really, really good one. Man, I've spent half my life in these situations.
We had one a couple of months ago, and it happened to be on a Sunday, on a holiday. It was the last day of move-in. Very large, complex, lots of electronics and audiovisual, Cat5 cables on a 20 by 40 exhibit space at a tech show. And the CEO of the company came in on that Sunday. And the customer, that exhibitor, had signed off on the orientation of the booth, but unbeknownst to them, the exhibitors on both sides, huge walls, 20 foot, 16, 20 foot high wall. And they wanted their booth spun. It was a full 3 days to build to where we were at. And they wanted it turned 90 degrees. And we call that being asked to lazy Susan the booth, right? And that's not an easy thing to do. And the lead man was saying, can't do it, not enough time or whatever. And this guy was just getting hotter and hotter. In the end, by the time I got there, he was he was redlined. And to your point, it really was, let's step aside and listen to him rant all over again. Listen to my guy. And I said, okay, so we have a couple of options. Let's run through what they are. One thing we can do is I can have a hanging sign printed to get your name up high above those walls without moving things around. He goes, no, we need our reception counter over here. And number two, okay. So there's some components like demo stations we can slide into the aisle, but make no mistake, there are 14 electrical drops in this booth, and all of them have to move. So we really have to go down to bare concrete to do this properly for you. There's no snaking a cord a couple of feet, right? So we're going to have to dismantle a lot, and then we're going to have to slide off. It is a holiday. And so we're now at 10 hours today. So it's going to be double time. We could work all night to do this for you. But, so just know I'll get you what the cost consequences are of doing that. Or we could move some components, like make your reception counter over here where you think will be more. We can do this over. So he just needed some options to pick from and a little bit of time to just understand it wasn't going to be what he was hoping and insisting. And ultimately felt he had a little influence over that. We paid attention and respect to his budget was very important to him. He couldn't argue the fact that his own people signed off on that. He wanted us to penalize the exhibitors next, things that you just can't do. So anyway, we see that kind of thing happen all the time.
You listened to it. You heard his goal.
You heard
that's just the problem. Why is it a problem? Tell me what you need.
So
and by understanding that, you gave him options.
When you have that traveling executive that comes in and they are blindsided with that kind of a change, and they immediately, what the workforce personality like of the people that are setting up and dismantling those booths. So when you immediately start yelling and going after those individuals, their instinct, the same thing that makes them great at some assembly required and the carpentry work, their natural instinct isn't to be empathetic and great listeners, right? So if you're attacking them or they feel like they're attacked, they very often will respond in an unproductive way. And so that's where leadership gets involved, and hopefully we get there before it's beyond control. And the one thing you hope for that can make it all better is if they do have a great show and get tons of leads and sign a big deal and do all that stuff, all of a sudden that goes a long way to put the pain of the headaches in the rearview mirror, because now they're focused on really what they should be, and that's coming out of the show.
Yeah. What I like about that example is that it's a service mindset, but it's also, you've taken an opportunity where it could have been a customer concession. We talked about that a little bit in the Grow with No episode, but you could have gone and said, okay, yeah, you're right, we need to do that. But instead of it just doing it for free, you gave them the options and you let them know that there were consequences to certain options that would not be a concession for you, but you would actually charge for that option. And I think that's where people get stuck with the service, where they may not want to serve because they feel like it's going to cost them a little bit more. They're going to lose money on the job now because they're going to have to put so much labor into this and not actually make any more money on it. So I think customer concessions has to be understood that, yeah, we can give options, but we also need to be adequately charging for the service that we're providing.